Learning with the Hindustan philosophy. Moving into this world, we see that there is a combination of cognition, thinking, mental processes with intuition, feelings, gut assessments. Learning in this world is essential to becoming a whole and unified being. It's what the whole Hindu ideal is all about. Finding your true unified self. So the teacher in this world is revered, and the relationship between him and her and that student is sacred. There's some amazing stories. There's one in particular in the book that, if this philosophy at all interests you, is definitely worth reading. In this world, there's the belief in karma. We get back what we give. So if you're horrible to others, you will be treated horribly in return. Something horrible will happen to you. There's a strong oral tradition here which relates. There's a lot of stories about karma and karmic retribution and all that, but it's also the reward for combining learned knowledge with the feelings that you have from the world around you. And it's your responsibility to share what you learn from combining heart and mind, if you will. Learning with an Islamic perspective. Here's a great quote right on page 233. Islam is a comprehensive way of life. It pays attention to education and knowledge seekers. The belief is that if God has created all things, and sorry, I just cannot write the word God. Whatever religion we're talking about, whenever the word God is used, I always do G-D. It's just a respect thing with me. The belief is that God created all things and all knowledge, so therefore, by learning, one is doing the work to get closer to God. Learning is an honored, sacred, wonderful thing. This perspective integrates the cognitive, the mental, the spiritual, and the social dimensions of learning. And there are strong communal obligations. When you learn something, you have to share it with your family, with your tribe, with your community. It's your responsibility. Again, go back to the writings in the Quran, the Word of God, is that everything that has been created by God is created for us to use, to explore, to give back and celebrate God. So learning about it is being a good Muslim. Learning with an indigenous African perspective. To learn is to understand how to live usefully and happily with one's family, community, society, and ancestors. Right from the book, page 235. This is a wonderfully rich perspective of looking at learning. The focus is on helping the group reach the highest level of what they consider humanism. Their term is Botho. Botho is about helping others and showing respect to both the young and the old. It is very observational in nature. This is not a perspective that is based upon literacy as we know it. It's almost a different form of literacy. It's being able to pick up on the intonations and the mannerisms, the way the people share their stories and go about living their lives, often based on oral sharing of knowledge. Again, how values and morals are taught is through stories and the way those stories are shared. Often it's not just through stories, but in song, in dance, in celebration, and everyday behaviors. Incredibly important in this perspective. Critical theory in general is what it sounds like. It's looking at things with a critical eye, not just accepting the rules as they are because they are rules, but why do these rules exist? Focuses on asking questions about the assumptions we make about the world around us. Explores a system of power, whatever that power structure may be, and questions its authenticity, its legitimacy and appropriateness for those in society. So right off the bat, when you are looking at things with a critical theory perspective, you're not just accepting that what we've been taught is right, that the way things are organized is correct. You're looking at how it serves and or manipulates people. There are multiple orientations within critical theory. There's Marxist theory, multicultural. Often, though, it tends to focus on race, gender, and class. There are two particular types of critical theory that are talked about in our text, so we're going to get into that. Postmodernism. This confuses a lot of people, so let's focus in on this. It sees the world as being diverse and fluid, as opposed to modernism, the modern lens of the world being patriarchal, solid, set, clearly defined, and scientific. Think about the 50s and the 60s, this search for the ability to control the environment through science, the fight against the patriarchal society that was perceived at the time. Postmodern. It seeks emancipation for the individual through identifying the oppressor or the enemy. Usually the oppressor or the enemy is considered some kind of societal structure, its hierarchical nature, or how it tends to serve the class, quote unquote, in power. It celebrates diversity. It's not about trying to get everybody to fit in the same box, but recognizing and appreciating how each individual is different. Focuses on knowing as being multiple truths. This is one of those things that drives a lot of modernists and a lot of conservatives truly crazy. To them, there is a truth. It is what it is. You see it, you know it, you feel it, it is. As opposed to postmodernism, which considers the individual to continually be in a state of construction and reconstruction depending on where they are in their lives, what's happening in the environment around them. The person is continuously evolving, or in some cases devolving, because of the experiences that they're having. If you want to see a hilarious example of postmodernism, if you go to Google and you type in Billy Madison plus postmodernism, you'll see some clips from the movie that are so hilarious, and even though they're not actually about postmodernism, they're truly an example of a form of postmodernistic expression. They're very funny. Moving on to critical theory, feminist perspective. This focuses on both the individual and the community that individual resides in, and again focuses strongly on power relations. It is a political framework. It's all about consciousness raising and activism and creating an empathetic, nurturing environment in which the innate values and propensities of a female are treated with much more respect than, through this lens, than they are in the traditional patriarchal, male-oriented environment. So we have a summary. No one perspective is better than another. Let's get that straight out there. You may feel one is more valuable than another. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is you can't just stand up and say this one is right and this one is wrong, this one is good, this one is bad. It's not about judging. It's about looking at how others use their frameworks to view the world around them. Each one does have a place in our body of understanding as educators of adults. We need to recognize where our students are coming from philosophically, politically, their understanding of society and its role, our role within society. Encourages us to consider the power structure between teacher and adult pupil. Do you expect your students to just sit down and listen to you because you are the teacher and they're supposed to? It also demands that we integrate the affective, here's a term we use a lot in this class, the emotional and experiential learning into our methodologies and curricula. We can't just throw these concepts away or try and tack them in afterwards. They need to be part of our foundation as we're figuring out not only what we're teaching, but how and why we are teaching what we do. So that's a summary. Now let's look at the actual assignment.